Dana White has dropped some of the most craziest fight news this week. Some brand new fights and some fights that we knew that were going to happen from the outcome of JDM beating Bilal Muhammad for the welterweight belt. But we finally have news. Ilia Topuria will be fighting Charles Olivera for the vacant lightweight belt at UFC 317. Islam Makhachev has vacated the lightweight belt, and he will be fighting Jack Della Maddalena as soon as Jack Della Maddalena recovers. There is no timetable for that yet, but we also have Ilia Topuria calling Makhachev a duck. Also, the co-main event for UFC 317 is Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Kara-France. We also have Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis, main event for UFC 319 in Chicago. We also have Renato Moicano versus Branil Dariush is one of the fights for UFC 317. Also, they finally gave us some of the fights for UFC 317, and I kind of wanted to talk about this card a bit because I don't think this card is worthy for International Fight Week. I feel like Ilia Topuria versus Charles Olivera is carrying this card. Most of the fights on here, they're good, but I don't feel like this is like the card of the year. Usually, International Fight Week is the card of the year for the UFC, and I don't think this might be the card of the year. I just feel like some of the fights on here are just not that good. But Topuria and Olivera are carrying this card. We also have Robert Whittaker fighting Raider de Ritter. My boy Raider de Ritter is getting a quick matchup against Robert Whittaker in July. And we also have Shara Bullet fighting Marc-Andre Barat in UFC Abu Dhabi after Barat dented Bruno Silva's skull. But let me take a breather. We're going to talk about all this, but let's talk about Ilia Topuria versus Charles Olivera for the vacant lightweight belt. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I did not think it was for the vacant belt. I thought Islam Makhachev was at least going to fight JDM, and if he lost, he would go back down to fight Ilia Topuria. But I did say in my last video that if Islam Makhachev vacates the belt, he will not go back to lightweight, and it's true. He is not going to go back to lightweight. He will stay at welterweight, and we're going to have a new champ for the lightweight division, and I think it's going to be Ilia Topuria. I think Ilia Topuria knocks out Charles Olivera. I just think Charles Olivera, he's getting old. I thought Arman was gonna get it, but obviously the UFC hates Arman right now, and they're chucking him to the back of the line. But we probably will get that fight soon, hopefully. I just think Ilia Topuria is gonna beat Charles Olivera. He's gonna knock him out. He's knocked out the last two featherweight goats in Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski, and this is still going to be an amazing fight. I feel like this fight right here has a lot of anticipation, especially now with the news that Islam Makhachev is not going to be coming back. I just think Ilia Topuria, he's going to reign over this lightweight division for years to come. I feel like he beats Paddy Pimblett. I feel like he has a chance to beat Arman Tsarukyan, but it starts now with Olivera, and I think he beats Olivera. But let's talk about Islam Makhachev vacating the belt. I wanted to talk about this because there's rumors that the UFC told Makhachev that if he fights Ilia Topuria, he can go for double champ status. But I just think double champ status doesn't exist in the UFC anymore. They made Ilia Topuria vacate the belt, but I was also surprised that they didn't make Jon Jones vacate the belt. Dana White did say in his live stream that fight is going to happen. Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall is going to happen. They just don't know when. I feel like he's just, he's lying. He doesn't know when it's going to happen. They're probably going to have to throw a lot of money at Jon Jones. He's trying to maybe salvage that. But Islam Makhachev, we won't get the fight that we wanted. We won't get the fight that we wanted with Ilia Topuria. That is now forever gone. I still think this fight against JDM is going to be really, really good. They have the odds. The odds maker have it as 50-50 now, especially with the win against Belal Muhammad. JDM looked amazing out there. I still think Islam Makhachev can submit JDM. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, Islam Makhachev, his ground game is way different from Belal's. But also, I think Islam Makhachev has never faced a really good striker in JDM. JDM showed it against Belal Muhammad. This fight will be interesting. I just think it's kind of weird that Islam Makhachev didn't fight Ilia Topuria. Like, he really said, I'd rather wait for JDM to heal up to go get the belt, then fight Ilia Topuria for International Fight Week. I thought he could have fought Ilia Topuria. Then, if he beat Ilia Topuria or he lost, he could have just moved up to welterweight. Let's be honest. He could have just moved up. I feel like Islam Makhachev is ducking, and Ilia Topuria kind of says it in his quote here. He says, on June 28th, another dream will come true. I will be champion of the lightweight division. Charles Olivera, my apologies in advance. I'm just fighting for my dream. It's unfortunate that Makhachev ran away. A lot of people in the comment section are saying that he ran away from Masvar, but the UFC kind of promised Ilia Topuria that if he did move up, that they would try and make the Islam Makhachev fight. Obviously, that fight couldn't happen. That's why they gave him the title shot immediately with Charles Olivera. I felt like that was the right thing to do, to give him the title shot. Like, if they would have gave it to somebody else, fans would have rioted. Let's be honest. We all wanted to see a good fight for lightweight, especially if Islam was to vacate the belt. And we do get it. But fans saying that he ran away from Masvar is kind of crazy. Like, Masvar wasn't a really exciting fighter like that. Obviously, I think Masvar's next fight is against Alexander Volkanovski. Hopefully, I just pray that they don't do Masvar dirty like that. I feel like he deserves the title shot against Volkanovski. But Ilia Topuria is saying that Islam Makhachev is running away and ducking. I've been kind of waiting for him to say that. He hasn't been really been saying that a lot, but he finally says it after the fight gets announced. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about the co-main event of UFC 317, Pantoja versus Kai Kara-France. I didn't want this fight, man. I wanted somebody else, bro. Kai Kara-France is coming off a one-fight win against Steve Erceg, and Steve Erceg just lost to Brandon Moreno, so I don't know, but they could have gave this to like Manel Kape, bro. I feel like Manel Kape deserved the title shot more than Kai Kara-France. But whatever. If Kai Kara-France somehow wins Pantoja, I don't think it's gonna happen. I think Pantoja is gonna beat Kai Kara-France. But obviously, the winner of Brandon Moreno versus Kai Kara-France is obviously the next up for the winner of Brandon Moreno versus Manel Kape is obviously next up for Pantoja. But we're gonna talk about that later on. I just think Pantoja just submits Kai Kara-France or takes him to a decision. I don't think Kai Kara-France is good enough to beat Pantoja. If he gets lucky enough and does knock out Pantoja, congratulations. But I just think Pantoja's way more skilled than Kai Kara-France. But we move on. Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. This is gonna be a war. This is an exciting fight that fans want. DDP plot armor versus, if you can get past the first round of Khamzat Chimaev, this is gonna be an amazing fight. For right now, I'm gonna go with DDP. I feel like DDP can get past the first round against Khamzat Chimaev. I feel like his plot armor is insane, but then again, we're talking about a monster in Khamzat Chimaev that he can submit you in less than a round. Let's be honest right now. I cannot wait for this fight. This fight is going to be really, really good. I wanted this one to be for International Fight Week, but obviously the UFC had other plans and they made it in Belal's hometown of Chicago. But crazy good fight right here. I think DDP beats Khamzat Chimaev by decision, or Khamzat Chimaev gasses himself out. But I'm taking this lightly, bro. I'm not gonna do Khamzat Chimaev dirty like that. He's a really good fighter. Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. This is this is a cool fight, I guess. This is a cool fight. This is a cool fight right here. I feel like Renato Moicano beats Dariush. We can talk about it in this right here, because I wanted to talk about UFC 317 in general and the card in general. Obviously, they don't have it as who's the main event or who's the main card. We don't know who's the main card, but I feel like Topuria versus Olivera is carrying this card, because we know that Pantoja is gonna beat Kai Kara France. We know that's gonna happen. Pantoja is just too good, and Kai Kara France, his grappling is not good like that. Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. That's part of the main card of UFC 317, and I don't think it's good, bro. I don't think it's good. I feel like Topuria versus Olivera is carrying this card. Like, look at the other fights that we have here. We have Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. Yeah, it's a good fight. That's probably gonna be on the main card. But come on, dude. This is International Fight Week. The UFC is supposed to be giving us bangers, and I feel like they're just chucking up some fights in here to make it look good, because they know that the main event is gonna sell itself. Denise versus Tafa. Tafa's trash. Denise just lost to Tybura, a heavyweight bout that nobody really cares about. Royval versus Cap. That obviously is a really important fight, because that's gonna be whoever wins is obviously Pantoja's next fight. That has to be on the main card. That's going to be an electric fight. That's going to be probably one of my favorite fights on this card to watch, and probably the one I'm going to tear up, because both of them are my favorite fighters, and I cannot afford to see one of them lose. But whatever, that's going to happen. Jack Hermansson's finally back against Gregory Rodriguez. That's going to be a really good fight. I can say that's going to be an interesting fight. Viviana Andrade versus Tracy Cortez. We get to see big booty baddie Tracy Cortez, but obviously I feel like Andrade beats her, dude. I just feel like the fights that they're throwing up for this card, it's whatever, dude. I feel like the UFC just did, they just said, let's just do our job and just chuck up some cards. Guys with some rankings on here. And obviously Topuria versus Charles Olivera is carrying this baby right here. But yeah, we also have Robert Whittaker versus Reinier de Ridder. My dog Reinier de Ridder is back in action after demolishing Bo Nickel, and I think he demolishes Robert Whittaker as well, dude. I feel like the goofy plot armor of Reinier de Ridder is gonna beat Robert Whittaker, especially if Dricus du Plessis beat Robert Whittaker. I feel like Reinier de Ridder is gonna do the same. I feel like Reinier de Ridder, really underrated, bro. A lot of people underrated him before the Bo Nichols fight, and I'm like, bro, this guy's a 2-division champ in another promotion in one champion. Obviously, he was fighting like 40-year-old heads or whatever, but he still fought really good competition, and I think Reinier de Ridder gets it done against Robert Whittaker. This is probably going to be the co-main event for that card in Abu Dhabi. Shara Bullet versus Marc-Andre Barrat. This is easily a Shara Bullet win. I feel like they gave this to Shara Bullet just to get him back on track after losing to Michael Venom Page. Shara Bullet has to beat Marc-Andre Barrat. That's a no-doubter. But I wanted to talk about Ilia Topuria versus Olivera and all this again, because, man, I really wish we would have gotten Islam versus Ilia. But obviously, I think Islam just doesn't want to fight Ilia Topuria. Let's be honest. He does not want to fight Ilia Topuria. He could have fought Ilia Topuria for International Fight Week, and then he could have just moved up. He could have just moved up, win or lose, moved up to fight Jack Della Maddalena. Dana White would have given him that respect. But man, if let's just say this: if he loses to JDM, it's gonna look really bad on Islam Makhachev that he vacated, ducked Ilia Topuria, moved up to fight Jack Della Maddalena, and loses. It's going to look really bad in his career. It already kind of looks bad that he just, I think Ilia Topuria is a way better fight than Jack Della Maddalena, obviously. Ilia Topuria's resume is insane. especially if he beats Charles Olivera. Obviously, Islam Makhachev has a win over Charles Olivera. But it's going to look bad if Islam Makhachev loses to JDM. It just does. But we have a lot of good fights at least. A lot of good fights to worry about, man. I cannot wait for UFC 317 at least to watch. But UFC 317 would have been a little bit more interesting if it was Islam Makhachev there. But that's all I got for this video, folks. I'm JDM MMA. Like and subscribe. I got a lot of support in the last few days. I have something coming up soon for you guys. So like and subscribe. I'm JDM MMA, and I'm out.